to the Little Talk Podcast. I'm sitting here today with my friend, Ubba. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Ubba, Rianna's friend.
What's your backstory?
So, 22.
And tell us about yourself.
I like to lift weights. I compete in competitive powerlifting. I work for a living. Obviously, that's just a hobby on the side. I've always been a competitor. I can't not be doing something that involves like some sort of physical activity because I get bored, and I don't have ADHD or anything, but still, that just keeps my mind in the right place. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
About a year ago, I'm trying to think of the word for it. Came down with depression, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so about a year ago, I came down with depression, and it actually started experiencing it because I always knew there was some. I had a gut feeling. It's instinctive, I guess, that there was something not right because being at parties, being with family, everyone's having a good time, and they seem, even though I don't like some of the people, they were at least real about how they were feeling or how they talked to someone. A lot of them weren't scared to say anything, even if it was rude. They weren't afraid to say it. Now,
just like in general at parties,
just in general, or like to your family, when you see family. But there was just something that I couldn't do, and that was really hard because it was like my mind went blank all the time because it was like now that I realize that I was just holding back everything that I had experienced back when I was a child. So, and the same thing in school. I could listen to a teacher all day and not retain a single thing. And for a while, my mom thought maybe I might have had ADHD or ADD, but that wasn't the case. I didn't have any symptoms of that, but not being able to focus. And so.
And that was because of your depression?
That's what I'm thinking, and that's what my therapist said too. Was just your mind is. Basically, you should take care of the problem, is what she was saying, because otherwise it has other repercussions, and it doesn't have to be huge ones, but it can be little ones as that, and then in turn, over the long run, that's going to affect bigger things. Kind of
like your mind is working so hard to suppress things that have happened in the past that you can't focus on anything else.
Yeah, and I experienced that because when I was blocking out everything and I just tried to be happy, I tried drinking a bunch to, and for a while I thought I was happy because of drinking. Because I mean, when you drink it,
Yeah, you do feel pretty good.
Yeah, and I could talk to people, my honest feelings. I could go on and out about powerlifting, things I love for like hours, and I know no one really wants to hear that all the time, but like I didn't care because I was happy at the time per se. But when I came down with depression, that kind of opened up everything because it literally put me rock bottom. When I came back, I didn't have a job, which I was looking for one, but I didn't have the job.
Okay, so you came back you were in Arizona.
Yeah, I was in Arizona. I stayed in Arizona for 4 months and didn't like it there. Just wasn't my type. I'm not a desert person. I like to visit there, but I'm definitely a northern tree green person. And so when I came back, I had no job and I couldn't drink still, and I couldn't do any other thing that would inebriate you because I don't do other things, but
even if you wanted to.
Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't. But I couldn't do anything to suppress what I was feeling anymore. So it literally basically it just made me feel everything that I'm supposed to, and even if these horrible things that I was feeling and feeling bad for, I needed to experience those because it gave me knowledge now of like, all right, if this comes up again, you know exactly what to do. And I couldn't drink or anything because also I just got out of surgery.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't lift weights either.
Oh, wow. So that really it was just kind of you sitting
around and and I started to experience it a little bit before I came back from Arizona because I was at home all day. Mm-hmm. And my baby brother at the time, their summer break ends in Arizona like a month or two before people in Washington's do when you're in school. So I only got to spend like maybe a month and a half working and then hanging out with him and my dad and stuff. But once they were all back in school, and my stepmom, she worked at home, but she's also gone a lot of the time. But
so did you so you went to high school in Washington,
mm-hmm.
right? So during high school, did you suffer with that depression, or were you drinking to help it, or?
Actually, so high school is kind of a weird story. Like high school was weird in terms of like what it was going through my head and what was actually happening. And actually, I kind of experience the same thing now, like things that go on in my head and what's actually like happening in real life. Like the saying actions speak louder than words is like, it sounds so corny and cheesy sometimes because it is overused, but at the same time it is so true. Like I've had the most negative thoughts about just doing, you know, things that I would never even want like ever to do, you know, and but as I'm thinking those, yet I'm still helping out someone, or you know, so your actions really do, I think help. That's why the gym helped me a lot, because I could be thinking those horrible things, and yet I'm still lifting, and I'm not feeling as depressed. I'm still depressed, but the lifting definitely helped. So high school though, it was when I got into high school when I was a freshman. I had that. I actually didn't drink until I drank like once my sophomore year. That's it. Oh, wow. In my junior year, kinda, sorta. Senior year, not so much either. My sophomore year, I was a really like, I was a really like sports oriented guy. Like because of obviously I was suppressing the thoughts. I didn't realize it, but all I wanted to do was literally just sports. Yeah. School, I could really care less about.
So it sounds like you kind of always had something to keep your mind busy.
Yep.
And just keep from sitting down and thinking about things.
Mm-hmm. I'd come back from basketball practice and I'd shoot for like another 3 hours before I even got to my homework. And sometimes I didn't even do my homework because I couldn't focus. And even then, that would be hard to do sometimes just because I also, for a couple of years in high school, I was a 3-sport athlete. It was football, basketball, and soccer. And those kept me busy year round. And if football season, if that was getting like towards the end and I wasn't playing as much, then fall basketball would start, little league, so I would be doing that on the side too.
You're always doing something.
Yeah, literally, like, and even during soccer, I was doing. I'm not a Mormon, but I did play for a Mormon league team during soccer season because games were on weekends. Some of my soccer games were on weekends too, but I was still able to do both, and so yeah, I never literally had time to actually think. It was just do.
So then after high school, I'm trying just to get the timeline right. After high school, you went to Arizona. What was that?
I went to Arizona when I was 21. Okay. And it was 2018. Yeah. July 1st, 2018. I remember because I had a powerlifting meet like a week or two before.
Okay, so I didn't realize you got into powerlifting before you went to Arizona?
Yeah, I got into it probably when I was 19.
Oh, I didn't know it was that soon.
I lifted weights all throughout high school too. That was another thing that I literally kept busy with was I had weightlifting as a class every single year. Mm-hmm. And senior year for like the last semester, I didn't really have it as a class, but I still had a gym membership because one of my friend's moms offered to pay for it. So I was like, of course, hell yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and then it wasn't until after high school where the depression kind of hit me a little bit. It was more so, it wasn't so much the mental thing. It was actually bringing down my physical stuff. I went to the gym and everything, and I worked my ass off like crazy, but I didn't have a job. I was looking for one, and I also wanted to go to the military. Yeah. But that ended up not working out. Mm-hmm. And so finally, when I got my shit together, realized what I had to do, got a job, and then shortly after that, like probably 6-7 months, no, it's not shortly, but 6-7 months after that, I moved out of the house for the first time, around the time when I was 19, and then lived up north for a little bit, and then that's where I met my powerlifting coach, because I was like, just lifting weights for the fun of it, but I really wanted to do something with it, because I was like, all right, well, now I know I can lift weights, but at this time I actually want to be good at it. I want to actually be sport-like and get really nail form, really nail what I'm going to do in competition. You know, I want to do that. So I met her over social media, and we just hit it off from there because she's experienced. I think she's a national record holder.
Oh, wow.
And
she really knows what she's doing.
Yeah, I had no doubts. Like when she showed me everything, she broke me down. Like she, completely changed the way I lift weights, and it was great because it was like now I feel like I actually know what I'm doing instead of just going there trying to build muscle like a lot of fitness gurus do. Because now it's like, all right, I care about being fit. Don't get me wrong, but my main goal right now is just to be as strong as possible. And so after that, it was going good. And then I moved back down back down here, and well, I still wasn't doing great. I still only had a part-time job and not a full-time job. I was still lifting weights, and I still had a competition ahead of me. Parents were always, trying to get me to get a full-time job, which I understand. So, ended up moving to Arizona before I got a full-time job, just because I wanted to try something new, maybe what I was looking for. Yeah, but turns out that environment wasn't as great as I thought it was. And I don't think it was just necessarily the environment. I think it was my expectations. I got lazy, for sure. I did get lazy because I thought it'd almost be a party all the time, which in some cases it was a party, but I will give the people I lived with in Arizona they were able to party yet still have their shit together. They already had good jobs. They already had not everything, but they had a lot. So it was very easy for them to do that. Now I realized after I came back, I need to get my shit together fully before I can really start having fun. And it didn't really kick in until after the depression hit, because even when my depression hit, people who actually knew about it I'm really surprised, because a lot of people who were actually knew about it, they weren't they were supportive and stuff, but they weren't treating me like a kid. They were actually treating me like adults, saying this is going to help you, and we're not saying this because we want you to just kill yourself working. No, we want you to keep yourself busy, and then motivated. On top of that, you're going to go to therapy, because one night.
That was my next question. When did you go to therapy?
One night, the thoughts turned into feelings, and I know they were technically fake because I wasn't going to do anything, but one night I felt like I was going to kill myself because
they get overwhelmed.
I started bawling, crying in front of my stepdad, and I was just man, I don't know what to do with myself. I literally feel like I have nothing. Yeah. And this is after I'd gotten the job, and I'm 2 weeks in, and so I already felt bad because it was damn.
The job you're at now.
Yeah. So, and there was there was a probation period, and I was so afraid I was just going to get fired because of that. Luckily, I didn't, and so I ended up in the hospital for 2 days. They were trying to figure out what was wrong. How come, a guy who played sports his whole life and he competes in powerlifting, he's doing decent for himself. He's not out on the street. He's not doing drugs. He's not wasn't even drinking at the time.
Just having these awful thoughts.
Yeah, these awful thoughts and just feelings that make me just want to end it. So after the second day at the hospital, they finally admitted me into a therapist, and so after that, it was a very eye-opening thing, because I've gone to counseling before, not therapy. I went to counseling when my parents got divorced, which didn't really bother me that much because I was young at the time, and now that I'm an adult,
part of the process.
Yeah, I'm an adult now, and I understand why people get divorced. I'm not against it in any way. If two people just aren't right for each other, then well, so be it. That's how it has to be. But now this therapy was way different because I actually sat down, for once, because my other counselor, she was a little different, which I loved her methods too. She'd take me out to a basketball court and let me shoot hoops while she's talking, because that was my favorite thing to do. Yeah. So this time though, it was let's sit down and let's break this down. We want to find out where the root of this is all coming from, and this childhood trauma that I just suppressed basically. And
isn't that crazy? Because that's what my therapist does too, is she breaks everything down and gets to the root of it. For me, when we do that, it seems so small almost. It's all of the anxiety and depression seems so big, and then you do get those overwhelming thoughts where you could end it, and then when you start breaking things down, it seems a lot simpler and not as scary, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I can completely agree with you on that, because I think of it now kind of like a seed being planted, and then once you leave it unchecked and there's just completely just water and water pouring on it, it's gonna grow larger. Yeah. It's until you fix something, until you cut those roots. I guess that's the best example I can think of. And
I have a question too. What steps do you take to get kind of out of that low time period in your life? And how do you? Because at that time point I actually knew you then, and I had no idea what was going on. It's crazy how people can hide stuff like that so well. with, because I always thought you were like just fun, which you are, because at work you are a fun guy, like easygoing, and I would have never thought that you deal with such hard things inside your head. So how do you?
It's funny you say that though. I never believed. I never. What's the word? I believe people were depressed, but there's a lot of people that will say stuff on social media but act like nothing's happening in real life. So I always thought that was kind of like, are you actually depressed?
How could it be that bad then?
Yeah, before experiencing what I experienced, then I understood it, because like you said, I was doing the same thing. I was holding it all in. And now, granted, at work, it wasn't as stressful, even though I was working with, really big machines. Kind of stressful, but
not like mentally.
Yeah,
stressful.
I'd rather stress about something not working than my own head not working.
Yeah, exactly.
And so a few of my coworkers were, like, one of them I already knew, so that was really cool, and just kind of reconnecting with him, and meeting new people was nice too, because I didn't even know people, were at that place. I've been down there a couple times, but I never went inside. So yeah, just during the day, I just got tips. I got tips from her, and I got tips from my mom. My mom was really sweet. She always wrote me a note, like, every single day in my lunchbox, and, like, put it in there. Like, it was a different one every single day, and I think I still have all of them, because I don't want to ever, get rid of them.
That helps. So my mom will do things like that. She'll text me, or she'll send me notes and all sorts of stuff, just to kind of remind her that you're worth it.
Yeah, and you're okay.
It's a reason to, like, stick around.
And yeah, that's literally what it was. And I tried thinking of that, and at first it was really hard, because I couldn't just attack it like I want to, because I thought about it like a sports, combat kind of way, just go at it and attack it. And I figured out that's the wrong way to go about it, because you have to go at it like as an intellectual way. You have to actually try and think of, okay, I'm not going to combat these thoughts, because every time I combated them, they just come back worse. Now, after a while, I just let them go through. If I get a bad thought, I just let it go through my head. I don't react to it, and I try to let my stress just go way down. And then after it goes through, boom, I'm on to something else.
Is that something that your therapist taught you, or is that just something you kind of?
That was them. I wasn't sure if I believed it necessarily at first, but after a while, yeah, that's when I started doing it more and more, and then it started working more and more. So I was like, okay. And even sometimes you have, obviously, your little slip-ups, because some of them can be so horrid to you or others. And so now, like, all right, now we know how bad they can get, and how you are going to have slip-ups sometimes. Now just remember that for the next time. And, my therapist did tell me, too, that my first therapist, because I had two, because the other one had other stuff he had to do. He told me, is like, your brain processes between, like, I think it's like 10,000 thoughts a day, but you don't even realize it, because we're so busy with other stuff. And he also said that your brain creates junk thoughts.
What is that?
Junk thoughts are also known for being as intrusive thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Thoughts that you don't agree with at all. And the reason why, like, everyone experiences them, except for people with OCD, pure OCD, which is a different one, and then also people with PTSD. That's why we experience them more, vivid, and we feel them more. Because people without those can just be like, all right, whatever,
So do you have OCD,
PTSD?
Yeah. And so when you get, so they're kind of like visions almost?
Kind of like daydreams.
Okay.
Because like, if I ever had a thought that's worth nothing, then okay. But like daydreaming it and like seeing it, walking past someone and just seeing something horrid, and I'm not talking about their energy either. I mean, these people could be completely good people. Yeah, like going past my mom or my family and stuff, and I know they're good people. And just having a really bad vision or daydream of that would be horrible.
For that? Is that?
I don't know, actually.
I don't know either, because there's going to be some. But that is interesting.
So yeah, and every time it would just freak me out, because I remember now, like after a while, I realized that I had experienced these as a kid, but it was way back, like, before I was even 10 years old. And I always just thought maybe my stomach hurt or my body's shaking or something. And I didn't know what to tell my parents at the time, because what could I do?
It's scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary to you, so you don't want to say anything about it.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it was just scary, and then reliving them again was just horrible. So, after a while, I just learned that, or I just accepted the fact that, like, hey, I'm gonna have these thoughts, and there's no, I mean, if they go away when I'm older, cool. If they don't, cool. You just gotta go and still do what you're gonna do in life, and just know that, like, your actions truly are, like, louder than words and thoughts alike. Also, with that being said, that's how I realized that I'm a person who is a doer, not, I'm going to say I'm going to do something, and then I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it first, and then say I did it after, because I've realized, even, like, not even just, like, with, like, like, bad thoughts, but, like, even good thoughts, like, hey, if I told someone, I told my friend this a lot, like, when I was kind of into CrossFit, because I interned at a gym. I said, hey, I'm going to do an Olympic weightlifting contest. Not actually in the Olympics, but Olympic weightlifting style. I'm going to do that kind of contest. I never did. Because I was just saying it and thinking it too much, and I never actually took action on it. With powerlifting, I didn't even think about contacting my coach for the first time. I just did it. I just saw her on social media, contacted her, and, I tell people I have goals and stuff, but I usually try not to say I'm going to do it, because in the moment you have no idea what's going to happen. You just got to try your best. Even when I am in competition, my head is, like, absolutely, like, blank. Like, there's nothing there except just focusing on getting that lift. Like, I get there is a respectable fear with obviously having a bunch of weight on your back or holding it in your hands, but at the end of the day, you trained for it and you did all these things. So now you just got to go out there and do it again, one more time or 3 more times. That's it.
Would you say that weightlifting has been the best coping mechanism that you found?
One of them. I'd say one of them, because it gives me something not just to do, but something to be committed at.
To work towards?
Yeah, something to work towards, because when you do competitions and stuff, it's not like high school basketball or college sports. It's like you have to pay for them, which I actually don't mind, because thinking about, I'm passionate, and thinking about it, it's like that paying for it too gives me even more incentive to be like, all right, I'm not going to waste a bunch of money, because you don't get refunds on them unless it's like under the 48-hour period. But so it gives me even more incentive just to go out there and just do it. Like my diet's gotten better. I wouldn't say it's the greatest, but my drinking's gone down a bunch. I still drink. I'm not gonna lie and say I don't, but it's gone down. I don't just try to get, if I do drink, 7 days a week, I'm not trying to get drunk every night. I'll have a few beers and that's it. I just tried to go little by little. I figured, you know what? I'm not a person that can just cold turkey something. And also I guess the worst thing about the depression too was noticing things that I did when I was in high school and that carried over. And I broke in a bunch of those habits, but one thing that stuck with me was chewing tobacco. Like, literally, I did it because I was sad because I thought someone had cheated on me and I broke up with them. So asked a friend one night if I could have a dip, because I didn't want to do anything else. And what do you know?
That's your escape.
Yeah, it was, because I ended up loving it. And now it's not even the fact that I necessarily enjoy it that much. It's literally like having something in my mouth, like something in my lip. Sorry, having something in my lip.
Having something in my mouth.
Having something in your lip and having it stick out and just spitting. Yes, I mean, it's as much as like a habit. Even if you weren't chewing, spitting is such a big habit, and that people don't realize that. And then once you start chewing, you just do it all the time. And it became a habit too. Just going camping, going fishing, and going to the bar. Something, even I've even lifted weights chewing. I don't do that anymore. But I'd done it though, because it just became something where it's like I have to do this every day, which now I'm trying to cut down and eventually quit.
Yeah.
But at a time, I used to, when I started chewing, I went through like a can every 3 to 4 days, which is normal because it ain't that big.
I think you said a can. I thought you said 3 to 4 cans every
Oh,
day.
no.
I was like, whoa.
I went from a can 3 to 4 days, and then my senior year of high school, that's when I really started doing it a lot. I started going through a can a day, and I wasn't even working at the time, so every time my mom would give me money for an allowance per se, I would just go spend it on chew, or have someone buy it for me because I wasn't 18 at the time, back before the tobacco law was in play. And then after I turned 18, it was like I literally went at 1 a.m. before school the next day because I just turned 18 to go get a can.
You're like,
Yeah, I was like, I'm 18. Fuck it, why not?
so my next question is going to be all about your spirituality. So I'm going to let you explain all this because this was my first time hearing about it. And I have an idea of it just from what you told me and stuff. But I think that it would be best if you explain it and what it means to you. And then I'll ask you questions about it.
Okay, that sounds good. So I am a Norse pagan, or heathen, as people like to say. But heathen actually doesn't mean what people think. It's not. It was used as a slang term for someone who's an infidel, someone who's gross and dirty and stuff. And actually, heathen means people from the heaths, and that was from people in Germany, people in Scandinavia, basically the northern Europeans. And they lived in fields with heaths. They're purple plants, and they were farmers and whatnot. And they worshipped old gods. And if anyone is familiar with old gods, that includes, I mean, technically that includes every pantheon. You got Roman, Greek, Norse, Hindu, and Anglo-Saxon, which I guess is along the lines of Norse too, because they're all not the same people, but they definitely, I think, originated from the same place, and they just branched out. The gods basically just got different names over time. But anyways, so yeah, I had an experience probably, what is it? I had an experience probably around when I was 19, I think. I had just moved up north, and I came back down for a barbecue or something with my family, and at the time I was feeling kind of lost too in my head, and when I was actually, like, I wasn't gonna say I was trying to actually feel the depression, but I felt something. Mm-hmm. And this is worth to note, I was an atheist growing up. I didn't believe in, anything, just because of what happened to me when I was a child. And I was just like, mm-hmm. How could a God, do this? Mm-hmm. How could he let this happen? And had an experience that was definitely, I definitely can't ever look back, because it was eye-opening. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a believer with what I see with my own eyes, and what I saw with my own eyes was not some hallucination. I don't even do hallucinogenics, I don't do that stuff, and I was sober, yeah, and I was driving down the road, and something happened, and I never looked back from that day. And then I started researching and what it was, and I started watching TV shows and stuff. And
so how did you, I guess, discover it, or was it just what you saw?
It was, I already knew about old religions.
Okay.
I just never, growing up, teachers teach you in school that this is all myth and that there's only 3 big religions.
Yeah.
Not true, because these were all religions at a time, and there's still people who believe in it today. There's just not as many.
Okay.
And paganism itself is an umbrella term that can be Norse, Greek. Basically, pagan means you're not Christian and you're not Jewish and you're not Muslim.
Okay.
But nonetheless, these people still had their traditions. They didn't have churches. They didn't. They had a few. I think a few of them had temples, but Norse pagans usually, and I guess Germanic ones too, they had their worship out in the woods.
Okay.
Forests, out by the sea, on a beach.
So it's very nature focused. Very nature focused.
The nature of people. I mean, and if anyone who ever decides to read the stories, you'll realize that these gods and goddesses, they're I believe them to be very real, but at the same time, they're not all powerful. They have their flaws, and that's why I love it. It made more sense to me because they're more human. Mm-hmm. They have feelings. The way we see them, I guess, is just more powerful than us.
Yeah.
And there's 2 ways to go about it too. Some people don't actually believe in their real existence. They use them as more of like a metaphorical belief.
Yeah.
And so
And is that what drew you? So that's what drew you to it?
That's what kind of did too, because I didn't realize, what it actually entailed and what being a heathen and what being pagan's all about. Mm-hmm. Because growing up, you're told that, these people sacrificed humans and, they were dirty, gross, and that's not the case. I mean, some civilizations probably did, but that was also way back in the day. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just pagan civilizations too. Like, there's many others that did the same thing. I'm not justifying it in any way, because I would never be a part of that. But and also, I realized one thing. Any ancient pagan civilization never fought a religious war. They fought wars, but it was never over religion. That was another thing that kind of struck me too, was it wasn't about who worshipped what god. It wasn't about, even if people conquered each other, they never really made them worship other gods. It was literally just, you answer to me now. That was one thing I found interesting. And just also, it's a big ancestral thing. I don't think ancestry has 100% to do with it, but I think it definitely ties you in. Mm-hmm. Obviously, being American and being mixed with a lot of things obviously draws you different ways. But at the same time, you could even say, let's say the one you most identify with. Mm-hmm. I'm part black, but seeing me, you probably wouldn't realize it. Some people might guess, but you really don't. People actually say I look more Scandinavian, which I am.
I can see that.
And so that was another thing, finding out, because growing up we were told something completely different, and then after taking DNA tests and actually researching, my last name and ancestors and whatnot, it made more sense to me even more, because I was just like, damn, I did not realize all this. And basically what it's taught me so far, especially with the depression thing, when I first discovered this, I was still kind of blocking everything out. And after I'd found this path...
And how long ago did you find it?
3 years now.
Okay.
It basically taught me to stand up for what I believe in, be respectful of others' beliefs, and always be... We're called the religion of homework, because we're always seeking more knowledge in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. Even if it's someone from a different religion, we want to seek knowledge of that, just to have knowledge.
So just very open-minded.
Yep.
More so.
And
it doesn't sound like you really shame anybody, or it sounds pretty inclusive, I guess what I'm trying to say.
It is and it isn't. I would say it's for people who aren't small-minded, and it's not for people who are weak. And I mean that in a sense of not just physically weak. I mean and I don't just mean mentally weak. I mean weak as in if you have a problem, or if you have something that's going on within yourself, morals. And morals too. Yeah. But if you're weak enough to not try and fix yourself, because everyone's going to be flawed for the rest of the time that they're on this earth. Everyone is. And if you're not constantly trying to improve, I don't think it's for you, because life is about growth, and you can see it with trees, you can see it with ocean life, animals, everything. Something evolves, or baby cubs grow into big ass bears. It's about growth, and I know those are technically natural growths, but that's the whole point. It's growing. You don't just want to stay at one job your whole life. I mean, maybe if you're making a lot of money, I guess, but you want to get better. Start your own business or something. And so I would definitely say it's for strong, minded people. And minded, like I said, it's as in knowing what's wrong and trying to fix it, or trying your best to. I guess the fighting spirit would be the best.
I love that. That's super cool. And have you... So is there a community of...
There's a few.
Okay.
I do not identify with the white supremacists, because that's like a parasite in our community. Okay. Because they think that if you're not white, or if you're not of Scandinavian descent or German descent, you can't be a part of this. That's definitely not true. Nowhere in history does it actually say that. You can read any historical textbook about even just about the Vikings. I mean, that's a good example, because everyone knows who they are. The Germanic tribes, even the English. There's nothing in there saying that you have to be white to worship these gods and goddesses. No, it's not true. And also, it's also taught me that, like I said, the fixing within yourself. Because at first, when I discovered them, I was really happy, and I was just like, man, I finally found my path. Like, I have something to believe in now, even after death, you know? And so, but after a while, when I got the depression, I almost lost faith just because I had a different mindset. I was relying on it in a sense. And that's something that they, in paganism in general, that they don't teach, is to rely on something. It's always be yourself, stand up for yourself, and don't rely on the gods. They're
there to help you.
They're there to guide you,
yeah.
But you have to do everything yourself. They're not going to just give you things. And the sacrifices thing, metaphorically speaking, I take it more as like, every day someone sacrifices something to get what they want. We both have to sacrifice 8 hours of our day to make money.
True.
We have to sacrifice gas to drive to work. You know, you literally, every time you have to give something, not like a willingly gift, but like every time you have to do something and give something to get something better, sacrifice. And so that's what I learned over time, and that's what's made my connection stronger with the gods of my ancestors too, was just realizing like these guys, maybe, I don't know what they were thinking mentally, because I was not alive back then, but physically, we have it way easier than they ever did. And just realizing, like, if they could live back then and prosper, there's no reason why I can't now. Like I know there's different challenges ahead for sure, but I guess they're good prime examples. Like, yeah, if there is a giant in front of you, a challenge, basically, if you believe in your heart that you're going to do it, you just do it. And yeah, like I said, it's been a really mind-opening experience. I definitely explore new things. I started writing poems again. I haven't done that since I was like fucking maybe 12 or 13 years old. And
I mean, you took it as far as changing your name, which
changed
I
my
want
name.
you to go ahead and talk about that.
All right,
because that's a pretty. I mean, in the last month, right?
2 months ago, November.
2 months. Okay,
November 21st, 2019.
Yeah, so now you go by Ubba, and before you were Noah.
Yep.
So go ahead and talk us through that.
So, like I said before, growing up, I was an atheist. I hated religion altogether. I was only thinking of the big three, though. I never really thought of, pagan religions, because I always thought of them as myths. But after a while, when I really got in, when I've been diving in deep and like really researching and stuff, and after a while, and this is no disrespect to any Christian, Catholic, Mormon, anything like that, it was just, I didn't find it respectful for myself to have a Christian name, especially if I'm not a Christian. And I don't, ever plan on being, because I have my path. And if other people have theirs, and that is totally fine. And so I figured, I was like, well, it doesn't relate to my ancestry either. So when I found Ubba, I kind of stuck with it, because I was just like, man, I really like that name. It sounds like my other name, except now it's more
it's
of
literally like the pagan,
it's like a
version.
Scandinavian old, and I didn't get it from a TV show, as some people probably thought. I really just thought of it just because it was Norse. It made more sense to me to do it, and I don't expect anyone else to understand it, because it's not for them, it's for me. And the only thing I've ever asked people who knew me by my old name was just to try. I understand people are going to slip up, and I understand people are going to forget.
And how has that been? Have those around you been trying, or has anybody ever been disrespectful about it?
I would say a few have been disrespectful, and not like disrespectful as in just like, there's only been one person that's been like blatantly disrespectful. That's like challenged me on it, like, oh, you shouldn't have changed your name and stuff. And then others, they disrespect me just blatantly calling me my old name without realizing it. And I just want to tell them just simply like, this isn't like a nickname, this isn't something my friends call me. I mean they do, of course, but this isn't something that they called me. They didn't give me a nickname. This is something like I literally legally changed my name, my ID, everything. So, yeah, like that old name is gone, ceases to exist. So, I'd say for the most part, though, my family, they've been pretty supportive, and they didn't have any questions about it. a few family members came to court with me.
That's awesome.
And so...
Well, that's all that really matters, too, you know.
Mm-hmm. They had no questions about it either. They just asked me about it. They asked me why, and they were like, well, yep, I support you, so when's the court date?
Yeah.
And so I was ecstatic, so it was like, damn.
Let's get this thing popping.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure because... The whole thing that people don't realize about depression is you forget. People always forget the memory loss thing.
Yeah.
Because people always tell me, like, you know, my grandparents I was really close with when I was younger, and I remember moments, but not a lot of it. So when people do stuff for me sometimes, it's not overwhelming, it's just surprising. Like, even though I love them and I know they would, I know in the back of my mind that they would, it's still surprising to me just because back then when they did stuff for me, I didn't really take it as such, you know, and so now when someone does do that for me, or even just says like, "Hey, I love the name," or you know, little stuff like that, it brings joy, like, and it just surprises me. I'm just like, oh, really? Even though I know they would do that. Yeah.
And where do you feel like you stand right now with your mental health and everything?
I'd say it's probably I have my moments for sure. Especially during like some downtime, like on like let's say road trips or something like that, and by myself, it is kind of hard, but at the same time, music helps. I listen to positive music. I only listen to actually maybe tribal music now, and just trying to get myself out of my head, like realizing like, hey, like I'm on the road. I gotta be safe. I can't think about this right now. Yeah. And even if I do, I'm thinking, well, hey, I'm gonna get there in one piece. I'm not gonna, you know, hit anyone because well, that's wrong. And and so. And also, I got to realize, like, where my destination goes. So, hey, like, I'm going to visit some friends up north or going to visit family, going to see my girlfriend or something. Like, yeah, no, I got to get there and I got to be there.
You're working towards something still.
And I got to just not snap out of it because it's not that easy. Yeah. Like some people think, oh, just stop thinking like that.
Oh, I hate it. That's like my biggest pet peeve when I'm sad and people are like, well, then cheer up. I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm happy. Thank you.
That's probably the fakest thing I've ever heard people say because those people are the ones who usually have never experienced anything like that. And it kind of sucks because it's like,
they don't understand it.
Yeah, they don't understand it, so you can't really get like pissed off at them. Yeah, like exactly. You are mad, but at the same time, it's like,
you're like, oh, you just don't, like, you just haven't. I mean, I don't wish it on anybody, so kudos on them if they don't get it. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but and then I actually did have a question before I forgot to ask. So you said that the depression was pretty recent, and that was like the first time you've dealt with a really dark depression. Has it made you a more empathetic person? Do you think? And has it changed your perspective on mental health as a whole? Yes, and I say yes and yes. It's weird because like I was empathetic before, really empathetic. Like I would blatantly just talk to people and have no problem listening, without even thinking. But I was listening to them, but at the same time it was like I didn't really know how to help them because it was like A, I never really experienced that, and B, I was too soft, I guess, before. Because it's also, as more actually real empathetic it's also made me more hardened, which I've loved because now it's like I have no problem saying something to someone if they, are rude to me. Because before I would just let it go. Like, oh yeah, no, they're just laughing. That's part of the therapy too, just getting to know yourself better and getting more comfortable with your spirituality. I mean, it's probably a mixture of everything as far as standing up for yourself and coming more into your own, I guess. And that's super cool. Yeah, it was just weird because it was like now, like don't get me wrong, like if someone says something about my tattoos without knowing, I'm not gonna like get mad at them, but I'll talk to them and say like, hey, this doesn't mean that, or this means this. But also, standing up for yourself really does change after you go through all that, because now it's like you're getting to know yourself way better than you ever thought you did, and now it's like, all right, you solved this problem, let's go on to the next. And before too, I would, I guess, not offended, but I would always tick in my head if someone said something too, especially about like my necklaces or my tattoos. Then it would tick in my head, but then, like I said before, that was the me before. Now it's just like, whatever. They'll never understand it, which I don't expect them to, and nor do I care, because, I mean, I was gonna say some people just want to say something, and then if you try to explain it, they're like, "Yeah, well, I don't really care. I just wanted to make fun of you." Like,
And I also lost the weird thing. It sucked at first because I hated. Like, I guess people don't realize part of the depression too is when you get to know yourself, you have to let a lot of things go too.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. I lost a lot of friends, which I'm glad that it happened now because I realize who are my true friends and.
For sure.
The ones it's funny because like it didn't even take that much for me to like realize who it was because literally the only real friends like I have then and still have now are the ones I told about me being depressed after a little while when I was comfortable about talking about it, and they're like I didn't even trust the other ones because it went through my head and I was just like I didn't even think about them. I just told the main people and that was it.
I was just gonna say it like because I'm dealing with that too right now. It's kind of like it's not necessarily that people take. It's part of like people taking themselves out of your life, but then also you realizing, oh, maybe that wasn't as strong of connection as I thought it was, because those aren't the people that I want to tell what's happening with me. It's this handful of people that I want to tell. So
yeah, it's crazy how that works because I never
thought of. I mean, I never thought. I was like, oh yeah, they're my best friends.
Yeah.
It's like they're not obviously.
And it's funny too because now also I think people have a different outlook on life, especially after going through that, and not just wanting to be alive, but like a different life plan too. Like right now, I don't care about having this big old fancy house and going out to the bars with my buddies and listening to country music and getting drunk or something.
That was your dream before?
No, not. It wasn't exactly that, but I did enjoy the time so much back then that I was just like, man, I would love to do this for a long time. But now it's just like, no, like I want to move out of the country.
Yeah.
And I don't care about having something big. I really don't. And I want to live up in the mountains where it's snowing most of the year.
Just simple.
It's just, I love being out in the winter. I love being out in the mountains. It's literally where I come from, or where my ancestors come from. So that's another connection too. It's just, I didn't realize how much I missed being up north until I moved to Arizona.
Yeah.
Because that hit me a little bit because I was the only one outside when it was monsooning, like storming, raining. I was outside enjoying it. I was like, damn, I missed this. And even though it was really like, it wasn't hot rain, but it was definitely warm. It was like, it doesn't feel the same, but it'll do rain. For now.
Last question. What is the best piece of advice that you've received, or what's a piece of advice that you wish that you had received?
Best piece of advice I received would be, your thoughts are not you. Simply because of those junk thoughts, intrusive thoughts are literally not you. It's literally your brain creating them because there's so many thoughts throughout the day, and that's just naturally what your brain does. And that's what my therapist was telling me, and he was just like saying like, hey, this isn't you. Like these thoughts aren't, they're made, yes, randomly, but they also came from outside influences to turn against you. Yeah. Like if it's
kind of like your mind playing a trick on you.
Yeah, I watched a lot of horror movies when I was a kid, and I don't really watch them actually that much anymore. Like I'll watch them, but I don't really prefer to watch them. I love the historical battle, bloody, sword fighting and axe throwing and shit like that. Like that's, to me, I enjoy that a lot more, and never knew why actually until being a pagan and stuff. But I'm not saying that has everything to do with it, but for me that was a kind of like, all right, well, this makes sense why I love this stuff. Yeah. But no, that's what he's saying. Some of the influences when I was younger, because watching horror movies at a young age with people not really paying attention to you. Yeah. You're probably gonna have some atrocious thoughts because people put stuff into movies, and I'm not bagging the directors or anything because that's
they're
their
not
movie.
Intended for little kids.
They're not intended either. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't restrict someone from watching horror movies, but just know the context of it, and
that's probably why there is an age limit too.
And so those horrid thoughts, like he said, part of them stem from that, and so that's why bringing back memories too of watching those and then merging them with thoughts of me in them, that's what scared me the most, because it was just making me think just weird things, and I was just like, what the hell, this doesn't make sense. And then he basically just explained, like, these aren't you, these are literally just junk thoughts. Like these literally have nothing to do with who you actually are. And that was pretty, it literally was after him saying that and me really taking that literally, it made the process go a lot smoother, and talking to him was a lot easier.
Yeah.
Talking to my mom was a lot easier.
Was it kind of like a realization, like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders almost?
Almost, yeah.
That's how it was. Like when I found out that I had bipolar, it was like everything just started kind of coming together, and was like, oh, this is why I act this way, or this is why this happens. And it was a big weight off my shoulder, and I felt like, kind of like exactly what you're saying, I felt like I could talk to my parents about it more, and tell people about it and not be so ashamed of what was going on. Because that's what happens with bipolar too, is like your mind plays tricks on you. And it's not your reality, it's just the way that your mind's making you feel.
Yeah, and people don't realize too, especially if you have anything like that and you experience bad thoughts, like I said before, if you have any of those, even I would imagine bipolar too, you probably experience them way more intensely than others do who don't have it, just because that's just what's going on in our brain, and that's what we're not cursed with, but
born with.
And so yeah, and the best piece of advice I wish I would have received was okay, I'm gonna say this. This is what I would have wished I would have told myself before. Okay. Because before, when I first got into therapy after the hospital, I told my therapist that, like, I feel like nothing. I want to go back to the way I was. First off, I realize now I don't want to be who I was, because that was fake, and I wasn't like a fake person to people. I was just fake happy. And also realizing that being happy all the time is definitely not a great thing. No. And also realizing that, yes, there are times when you're going to be pissed off. There are times when you're going to be sad, and you should just embrace those times. So the best piece of advice I can say is happiness isn't everything. Your emotions are, though. Just because you got to think about them. Like, okay, is this worth getting mad over? And if it is, then yeah, do it. Is this worth being happy over? Yeah. Oh, if it is, then yeah. If not, then no. Don't be fake don't be fake with your emotions. Like, let them out. There's nothing wrong with that. And yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Bye, guys. Oh, yeah, I also wanted to say before I ended it that we did this podcast outside in a park sort of setting. So if you heard any cars or dogs or people or birds like I did, get over it because we're outside. Bye.